This is not a perfect scenario. It's not always 100% possible for this to happen.
As Sam mentioned earlier, we have to pay minimum $4,500 to get that upgrade, plus whatever damage they do to the street to fix that.
Welcome back to this week's video. This week we're talking about fire sprinklers. I know so much about fire sprinklers. I know everything. They're so important. They're for your safety. If you get a fire in your house.
You were the one trying to get away with not putting in fire sprinklers.
Listen, these fire sprinklers are the most useless thing. In my opinion, I'm sure to some people it's a great safety feature. I don't understand it. If there's a fire in my house, I don't want to put a flood in my house, okay? That's my thought process.
Flood damage instead of fire damage, makes sense.
It's a waste of money. We had to do it. I guess laws changed about 10 years ago requiring fire sprinklers on almost all projects, new construction projects, additions of 50% or more. And about 5 years ago, those ramifications for when it's required kind of tightened up, at least in the state of California. I went through some code and I was like, okay, perfect. We don't have to put in fire sprinklers because we kept up some walls and it's existing and it's not new construction. Later, find out they passed even more laws that reverse these laws and we have to put in fire sprinklers.
Yeah, so we just went ahead and said we're gonna put them in. It's probably better, safer for the future homeowner anyway. So we went ahead with that. So let's talk about the 6 steps of fire sprinklers.
Probably 5.
6.
Probably 5.
6.
Before we jump to the steps, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button to show us some support. We're putting a lot more energy, a lot more production, a lot more quality into these videos, and we appreciate all the support from you guys. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button. And if you guys want to follow along the project more in detail, follow us on Instagram because we're posting stories there, updating on the project much quicker and much more detailed and much more raw. That gives us a rough synopsis of fire sprinklers. How do you actually know whether or not you need fire sprinklers inside of your home? What are the exact details?
Are you in the state of California?
If you're in the state of California, you need everything and beyond.
So if you're doing a 50% or more addition to your house, you need it. That's in California. I don't know about anywhere else. Nationally though, it seems like in 2011, National Building Codes changed where you might need fire sprinklers in every single new construction all across the country. Maybe certain counties you don't, but majority new construction post 2011 gotta have fire sprinklers.
Just to jump back on the 50% rule, 50% square footage increase requires you to put fire sprinklers in the entire home, or if you're doing a remodel like we are and you're leaving up one wall, it used to be that as long as you kept up 50% of the exterior walls, you would not have to put in fire sprinklers. We learned that changed, I think, in 2017 or 16 or something like that. So as long as you're adding more than 50% square footage, or if you delete any roofs or things like this, you're required to put in fire sprinklers.
And who knows, maybe the laws change today too. We don't know, laws keep changing. You gotta keep up with it.
Basically, just know that if you are doing a significant change, most likely you're going to have to install fire sprinklers, whether you like it or not. So let's jump into the 5 steps of installing fire sprinklers in your home.
All right, step 1. Sam, why don't you tell them what's the first question you get asked when you call a fire sprinkler installation guy?
So definitely Eddie did all the calling on this, so I wasn't on the phone, but I do know the answer to this because he called me to get the answer to the question. I was on the job site, he wasn't, and basically they ask you, what is your lateral size?
As always, you're on the job site.
Yeah, I'm working, Eddie's just like at home doing nothing, you know? The lateral size is basically the size of the water line that comes from the main city line, which is to my right, into your meter. This is our meter, and then leads into the house. Now the lateral is from here to the city. Our lateral is 3/4. Our outlet from the meter is 5/8. So your outlet from the meter is always going to be the same size as your lateral or smaller. Ours ended up being smaller, which opened up a can of worms and problems. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so by having a 5/8 inch line going into our house, that only allows us to put in fire sprinklers that have a 12-foot radius of spread. What that does is we end up needing a lot more fire sprinklers than if we had a 1-inch line, which gives you a 16-foot spread. Even a 3/4 inch line would give us a 14-foot spread. So by having a 5/8 inch line going into our house, we were gonna have to spend a lot more money on just fire sprinkler heads, as well as a cutoff valve that stops the water to the rest of your house, because a 5/8 inch line doesn't give you enough water pressure to have your sink running and the fire sprinklers running. That adds a lot of cost to your sprinkler system. The way to avoid that is to have a 1-inch line. But how do we get a 1-inch line?
Well, before we get to the 1-inch line, one of the alternatives was to get a 3/4 outlet line from the meter. But unfortunately, what the city told me after arguing with supervisors and all that fun stuff is the only time we'll upgrade you from a 3/4 lateral to a 3/4 outlet to your house is if we decide to change the meter. If you request to change the meter, you have to get a 1-inch line. I was like, okay, fine, I'll get a 1-inch line. What's the big deal? The big deal is $4,500 plus. So $4,500 gives you a 1-inch lateral from the city to your meter. And then from then on, it'll be a 1-inch outlet that you have to run that line yourself. But on top of the $4,500, they're also gonna charge us the cost of tearing up and repairing the street after the fact in order to install the 1-inch lateral.
How much does that cost?
Undisclosed until they're done with the job and they send you the bill. So I'm sure there's ways to calculate this, that the city has some parameters and stuff, but none of the city employees were aware of it and could explain it to me. So unfortunately, we are where we are. We ended up requesting the upgrade to a 1-inch line. Just a word of advice, this is something that you want to do at the beginning of your project, because in the city of Los Angeles, they're about 100 days out to get to your project. So it's a lot of problems. You want to start this the day you get your permits, and if you know you're going to put in fire sprinklers, get this upgraded. Check your line. If you have a 3/4, you're probably fine. With the 5/8, it's very problematic. It's going to be much more expensive. We had to move this anyways because of our driveway, a lot of factors, and we just said, hey, it's better to have a better product at the end of the day, and a 1-inch line and have more water pressure in the house is going to be a great selling point. So that's what we decided to do. So let's jump inside and talk about the different sizings and the placement of the fire sprinkler heads. Now we're inside the house and we're going to talk about step 2, which is planning. There's a couple steps involved in planning. We're going to start with the most basic and easiest way to approach this, and it's by finding the right person to install your fire sprinklers. For us, the right person was Moshe from Infinity Fire Protection. He did a great job of helping us through the planning phase of where the fire sprinkler heads are going to go, which is a big plus. He did all the secondary permits and everything else. He got everything basically solved for us. So I'll plug his information down below if you guys need stuff in the LA area. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help you guys. He was very competitive with his quote as well, and he's very knowledgeable. So let's talk about the fire sprinklers. The main planning phases that I went through is I kind of think long-term ahead and the final product and how it looks to the end user. So my approach was, hey, let's make sure the sprinkler heads are the right amount down so that when we put up our drywalls, they're not sticking out too much, they're not recessed in too much, they have to be at the right level. And I made sure to let him know that if we have to adjust those later, he's definitely gonna be responsible for that, so to make sure it's installed properly. He had no problem with that, he knows what he's doing, he's been doing this for a very, very long time. The other thing was for it to be aesthetically pleasing. Now, depending on where you're spacing them out, we want everything to be on center, lined up as best as possible. This is not a perfect scenario. It's not always 100% possible for this to happen, but they do the best that they can. Even if it meant adding 1 or 2 more sprinkles, he did the best he can to keep everything aesthetically pleasing. That takes care of the end product. Aside from that, there's the whole safety issue things and where the fire sprinklers have to be, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of restrictions on where you have to put fire sprinklers, where you don't have to put fire sprinklers. So with the 1-inch line coming into our house, we have to set our fire sprinklers 16 feet apart from one another. That's the maximum distance that we can have our sprinkler heads.
In order to have full coverage.
So that we can have full coverage all around. Otherwise, besides that, you have to have them in all your living spaces, your major hallways, your bedrooms, all need fire sprinklers.
Laundry rooms, bathrooms.
Laundry rooms, not all bathrooms. So bathrooms, if it's less than 55 square feet, you don't need one. But if it's more than 55 square foot in your bathroom, then you do need a fire sprinkler. Closets are really interesting too, because closets, if they're 3 feet deep, you have to have one. 3 feet deep or more, you have to have one no matter what. But if it's not 3 feet deep, but it's more than 24 square feet total, then you need one as well. Besides that, you also have to think about placement. They have to be 12 to 24 inches minimum away from AC vents.
Why is that?
So that if it gets too hot from the heater, you don't want the fire sprinkler set off because you're blowing hot air onto your fire sprinklers.
False alarm gives you flood damage.
You don't want that at all. Besides that, you gotta have them 3 feet away from any fans, and soffits cause an interesting problem. If your soffit is more than 28 inches in height, you might actually need to put a fire sprinkler in your soffit right next to another fire sprinkler.
So I think one of the problems we had here is we had to add extra fire sprinklers in the bedrooms, right?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that when it comes to step 3, installation.
Let's go there.
Step 3, installation. We had the guys from Infinity Fire Protection come out here and start laying out the pipes. If you see the pipes, they are orange in color, which is a CPVC pipe. It's a special type of pipe that's fire rated, so it can withstand up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and you have to pressure test it to 150 PSI of pressure.
So regular PVC pipes won't hold pressure like that either.
Yeah, these are special types of pipe for fire sprinklers. When they came out here and started installing, we ran some issues from the planning phase to the installation phase.
One of those problems being in the bedrooms, we have installed center ceiling fan lights so that potential homeowners could install a ceiling fan or a ceiling light, chandelier, whatever they want. That's where they had anticipated to put in their fire sprinklers, and because they have to be 3 feet away from any fan or light or anything, it created an issue with them having to move it, which resulted in 2 fire sprinklers in each one of the bedrooms instead of 1. Another issue that we had, which again goes back to poor planning on our part, is the fact that they lined up their fire sprinklers with the lights in the closet. The closets don't have recessed lights centered. They're supposed to be centered over the door because of where the coat hangers go. Our electricians installed them in the wrong location due to poor planning on our part, and the fire sprinkler guys followed that, so we had to have that all adjusted.
Yeah, Infinity Fire Protection was really cool because they came out here and made those changes, and they ended up not charging us extra for that.
And Joseph was also cool about fixing everything with electrical stuff. He sent out one of his guys the same day or the next morning, I think, and they moved the lights over to the proper location, along with a few other things that we needed to fix on the property.
So after all the fire sprinkler pipes have been run, the next step is they gotta look out for where there's any wires or anything touching the pipes, anything that can get close to the pipes. These pipes have special coating on them, and if you have your wires rubbing up against it, it can actually damage the coating and you can cause a leak in your fire protection system. So they went around and put insulation anywhere they saw wires that may touch the fire sprinkler pipes. That's it for the installation. After that, what do we have to do? You install it and you...
This is the fun part, inspection.
Inspection.
Now you're at step 4, which is my expertise, inspection. We're outside by the meter gauge that they use to pressurize this line to 150 PSI. Due to temperature drops and stuff, it's at, I think, 125 now, but basically it was pressurized at 150 when the inspector came out. Just for information, this inspector is actually different from your building and safety inspector. Completely different permit number, completely different department. I don't know why they do it that way, but that's what it is. I was not here for inspection. Usually I am, but Eddie was here this time, so tell us what happened with our inspection.
So as soon as the inspector came out, the installer knew exactly who she was, and he was like, oh man, she's a tough one. But she was really cool. She came out, she did point out a couple things, like we were missing insulation in some spots where wires were touching. She also pointed out that some of the screws that they use to hold down the pipes, there's a benefit to having somebody who's been in the industry a long time be your installer. She trusted that they were gonna fix all those issues without her having to come back. So she still signed off on our building safety card and trusted that they were gonna fix those screws and all that insulation that was missing. Everything else was all good. She was good with the placement of all the sprinkler heads, and we got the sign off for our fire sprinklers.
That's not our final sign off though. We're gonna jump to step 5 now. Final step is getting your house connected to the main meter. And if you're upgrading your line, you're gonna need this done at this stage as well. For us, we're upgrading our lateral line from a 3/4 to a 1 inch. We're also gonna move this back about 10 feet because of our driveway spread. And once we do that, we're gonna connect it to the house in the main sprinkler system. And from there, we're gonna call out another inspection, and it'll be the final inspection sign off, and we're all set to go for fire sprinklers.
So once we have the meter upgraded, one important thing is going from your meter, your 1 inch meter, to your house, you actually need to put a step up to that. So you gotta go 1 inch out of your meter, convert that to a 1 1/4 inch pipe to get to your house. the inspector needs to see that conversion. It's called a reducer, even though we're going up, it's still called reduction.
I think it's a pressure reduction probably, that's why.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but the important thing is the inspector needs to see that. You can't put in a 1 inch to 1 1/4 inch reducer and hide it, bury it in the dirt. It's gotta be somewhere that the inspector can come and see it on step 6 when you call for your final inspection.
Let's jump back inside and talk about the final cost for the fire sprinklers for ourselves and what you guys can anticipate in terms of cost for you.
All right, so since Sam thinks inspections aren't important, he thinks it's only 5 steps.
The 5 steps of fire sprinklers.
The 6th step was to call your final inspection after you have it all connected.
5 steps. We're here back inside, so let's talk numbers. Let's go throw up that big junky number here. I don't even know where we're at, but I know how much the fire sprinklers cost us. Installation with material and everything, permitting, plans, everything that you had to do. Nice and easy, $6,000.
What's important to note there, that is with the 1 inch line coming in, a 1 inch lateral. So we do need to upgrade our meter, and as Sam mentioned earlier, we have to pay minimum $4,500 to get that upgrade, plus whatever damage they do to the street to fix that.
Since we don't know that final number with the city costs and the street repair costs, we're gonna leave that out right now, but we'll add the $6,000 because that's already been spent and done with. We'll update you guys in a future video about the full cost of the fire sprinklers after we change our lateral and destroy the street and then fix the street. So make sure you guys subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit that thumbs up button if you guys enjoyed this video and got enough content and information out of it to help you along with your project. Given the total square footage of 2,430 for the house and about a 400 square foot garage that you also need to put fire sprinklers inside of, this comes out to a total per square foot cost of about $2.15. This is just a rough estimate. Go ahead and use this number to help you estimate your fire sprinkler cost. It's not exact because of different spaces, different ceiling heights. All these things play a factor in it.
And DWP.
Yeah, your lateral size also makes a play in it, so you might need more heads, which will add more cost to you. As you guys can see behind us, they're loading up the drywall inside. Most of the insulation got installed today. Tomorrow, we're gonna have the rest of it installed in the morning and have inspection for that. So in next week's video, we'll talk about the insulation, the outside wrap, getting prepped for drywall. So make sure you guys subscribe.